So we're in Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and next week is Hey Iyar. It's the 5th day of Iyar, which is Yom Haatzmaut, is Israel Independence Day. Even though interesting, this year might be on Vav Iyar. Different calendars have different dates of when you celebrate. For those who celebrate Yom Haatzmaut, the 5th or 6th day. And why would anyone not have Hey Iyar on Monday? Some have it on Tuesday. And that's because in Israel they have Yom HaZikaron. They have the day of remembering all the fallen soldiers and people, and they have a big event. And it's the day before. So if you're going to celebrate Yom Haatzmaut on Sunday night, that means Yom HaZikaron will be Saturday night, and the chief rabbin is concerned about Chilul Shabbos, desecrating the Shabbos. People will prepare the program earlier. So in Israel, I believe they're celebrating Yom Haatzmaut on Vav Iyar, which leads to a discussion among different rabbanim in America or North America, which day if you live in America or Canada should you celebrate. So therefore you have different opinions whether you go for the day whatever Israel celebrates, that's when you go for, or some will say no, it's Hey Iyar, that's the date, the reason doesn't affect us here, and therefore we celebrate Hey Iyar. Of course you can't have this dispute, let's say on the Yontiv of Pesach or the Yontiv of Sukkot or Hanukkah. Well, you can't just decide, you know what, let's celebrate a different day. Since there's nothing inherent, meaning obviously Hey Iyar was picked for a reason, but you could have picked 6 other dates for a reason also, kind of like the discussion people have by Yom HaShoah. What day is Yom when? Well, again, when is Yom HaShoah? Also, was a discussion whether you do it on Sunday or Monday this year, but more fundamentally, what day? Assuming you should have a Yom HaShoah, what date should it be on? So, actually, the chief rabbin in Israel, they said you should have it on Asara B'Tevis, on the 10th day of Tevis, which is one of the minor fast days, the days we fast, and therefore it should be used as a day where you observe, Yom HaShoah, you fast on that day and remember the ones who are lost. Really, it was a more personal day for those who lost people in the Holocaust and had no dates, so therefore to give them a date, they gave them a date of Asara B'Tevis. Others suggested Zayin Adar, the day Moshe Rabbeinu died, because it's like Moshe Rabbeinu, we don't know where he's buried, so too we don't know where these people are buried. Or another interesting suggestion was maybe the day before Lag BaOmer. What happened on the day before Lag BaOmer? It was the day where Hitler committed suicide. So what better way, on the last day before Lag BaOmer, have a fast day, or not a fast day, have a Memorial Day, and then on the next day, Lag BaOmer, celebrate the death of Hitler and the survival of the Jewish people. So what better way to celebrate? So together with it was the end of the death of Rabbi Akiva's students, and now we're celebrating on Lag BaOmer. So some suggested that day. But the bottom line is, there are many suggestions, but the bottom line is the Israeli Knesset said the date should be Chav Zayin Nisan, the 27th of Nisan. Of course, there are those who say there shouldn't be any date. Tisha B'Av is the date. Tisha B'Av remembers all tragedies, and the Holocaust is included. Which leads to the fundamental question is, do you view the Holocaust as one of the many unfortunate tragedies in Jewish history, albeit it was much bigger in scope and numbers. But we had pogroms, Spanish Inquisition. We've had anti-Semites trying to kill us all through Jewish history. So this one might be on a bigger scale, but it fits into the general picture. And Tisha B'Av is that day. Or they say no, since it was so big, 6 million, that maybe there's something besides Tisha B'Av which would warrant. So that's a discussion. As others don't like it anyway, it's Chodesh Nisan, Hesped. So many issues in terms of what day it should be, and people might still, or whether it should be a special day, it should be part of Tisha B'Av. Everyone agrees you have to remember what happened in the Holocaust, whether you make a fast day, whether you make a memorial, and when, that's a discussion. But the Israeli Knesset picked Chav Zayin Nisan, the 27th of Nisan. Why would they pick that date? Nothing happened on that date. Why would they pick that date as Yom HaShoah? So they wanted to make a compromise between the secular Israelis. The secular Israelis, they wanted to pick the day of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, Yom HaShoah v'Hagevurah, the day of show strength. The Jews fought back, and the day of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, that's what they wanted to pick that day. And if that day would have been picked, it would have been a major problem, because that year of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was the 15th day of Nisan, which is Leil Pesach. So it would be such a good idea that most of the Jewish people celebrating Pesach and then some observing Yom HaShoah. So the Israeli Knesset wanted to make a compromise, so they picked a date in between the Warsaw Ghetto and Israel Independence Day. Israel Independence Day is next week, so they wanted to underscore what they thought was underscoring the relationship between the Holocaust and Israel, which could be a very dangerous relationship for a couple of reasons. One is that, some make an assumption, some people make comments where that if we had Israel, there wouldn't have been a Holocaust. Obviously the comment's not provable or disprovable, but obviously many people think that's an inappropriate comment, that you're taking God out of the equation. God could have stopped it whether you had Israel or not. We don't know why he didn't stop it. We have many questions about the Holocaust in general, but that's a different issue. The point being is, some don't like that connection, and the implications are that if you had Israel before, there wouldn't have been a Holocaust. Secondly, on the opposite spectrum, people don't like it, because the new anti-Semitism is Holocaust denial. Now, what do you mean Holocaust denial? They deny the Holocaust, either that it happened at all, or more likely they deny the severity of it. And it really wasn't so bad. It wasn't. Most of the stuff's made up. Why did Jews make up the Holocaust? Two reasons. What are Jewish people always after? Money and land. That's what the anti-Semites always say. And therefore what? They made up the Holocaust so they could get the state of Israel, and they made up the Holocaust so they could get repercussions from. They could get the cars from Germany and other money they were getting. So therefore that's why they made it up. Not because of and therefore that's what the biggest anti-Semitism is today. People are denying the Holocaust. So one of the dangers of connecting on the other end from a theological, some have a theological problem connecting it, and others say from a more pragmatic level, you can incite the anti-Semites into saying, oh yeah, that's why. Then you have people saying, yeah, they made up the Holocaust so they could get the state of Israel. So some people like to keep the issues totally separate, even though, it's not, etc. So either way, so what happens is, whether you like the date or not, that's the date the Israeli Knesset picked. So then you have different approaches. Some say, well, who cares? It's a secular government. Who cares they pick the day? I don't care what they pick. It's meaningless. And others say, no, that it's true. It's not like a base in Paskin or anything like that. But once they did it, so that's the secular people are observing it, whatever observing means. They're not looking. We're not like fasting on Nisan. They're just going to a program. You could direct the program to a more religious title, or people could say that once it's here, how does it look that secular people are going and religious people aren't, and therefore they're concerned about the impression, or not that they think that's the right date or not, but so therefore. Therefore the different, those are some of the issues people have pro or con with Yom HaShoah. But the bottom line is, it's there, and do you say since it's not a secular, it's even though Israel's a secular government, but do you assume, if you assume Israel is, you view it differently than just any like secular government, so therefore. Some people, more people will recognize. But either way, it's the Israel Knesset picking the date, so it's a secular day. It's not the Israeli rabbinate picking the date. They felt other days. Some people felt Asar B'Teves, some felt Tisha B'Av, some felt the day of Lag BaOmer, whatever, so that's a discussion. So getting back, so similarly here, so Yom HaShoah, there's no inherent day, because when something of that tragedy happened for so many years, who's going to say that you could pick one day? It's the same thing with Yom Haatzmaut. So obviously they have reasons. That's the day when they sign. Someone claim that's not such a good day because that's when many Jews were killed. Anytime you pick one date in a big, so obviously when we're talking about biblical holidays, rabbinical holidays, there's nothing to talk about. It's already done. But maybe it was debated at the time, not the biblical holidays, but the Hanukkah, Purim. But the bottom line is, it's not up for discussion anymore. But here, since one could argue what date you should have picked, assuming you're going to celebrate, assuming that you think having the state of Israel is a good thing, that it's under Jewish control and not non-Jewish control. So if you assume that it's a good thing to have it, so then and you think it's a day where it's worthy of a celebration, so then you could pick, you could pick Hayir, then intelligent people could debate which day you think is the most appropriate. But the bottom line is, this the chief rabbinate picked. They picked the day of Hayir. So, but the point being that even they realize it's not an inherent day. That's why in the cases where it's a real concern of desecration of Shabbos, so they moved it over. They had Yom HaZikaron, they moved up to that. They'll do Sunday, and then Sunday night, and Monday night they'll observe Yom Haatzmaut. So therefore, that's how you could discuss changing dates. You can't discuss changing dates by Hanukkah and Purim, but Yom Haatzmaut, which is a more, contemporary holiday, so therefore it's not really inherent in the day. And others say that no, Hayir was the day picked, so therefore if you're in America, that's the day you stay with. So different shuls have different nights for the party. Some have, assuming you're going to have a party, some will have it Monday. Some will have it Monday and some will have it Tuesday. So I guess it's either Sunday night or Monday night it should come out, but Monday or Tuesday. And the point being is that Rabbi Selevan points out that why was Yom HaZikaron picked as a date right before Yom Haatzmaut, or why did we first observe Israel Memorial, a memorial for the soldiers? And then the next day do Yom Haatzmaut. So Rav Salvation pointed out something we just celebrated Pesach not that long ago. It's Rosh Chodesh today, so last week I think it was. It's hard to believe it was only a week ago, but we finished Pesach about a week ago or so, and we have a mitzvah on the night of Pesach of Sipor Yitzias Mitzrayim. The mitzvah telling over the story of the Exodus from Egypt. We have a mitzvah all year round of remembering, but the night of Pesach we have a mitzvah of Sipor, recalling and telling the Exodus from Egypt. Right? So they point out that the Gemara tells us in Psachim, how does one fulfill this mitzvah? Matchel beganus v'siyam b'shvach. You begin with ganus, you begin with the shame of the Jewish people, and you end with the downfall of the Jewish people. You begin with the shame and you end with the praise, you end with the good. And it's a discussion, what exactly is the shame? So a dispute between Rav and Shmuel in the Gemara. One says it's when we begin, Avadam Hayinu, we were slaves to Paro in Egypt. That's the shame. No person wants to be a slave. Or others say from a more spiritual level, Mitchilas Ovdei Avodah Zarah, how you will say, no, we go back spiritually, our forefathers worshipped idols. Which is interesting, this on the Yom HaShoah issue, that's the whole, what is considered a hero. So obviously, Yom HaShoah v'Hagvura, Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, it's focusing on the physical fighting back, which is heroic as well. But there's a different type of heroic. Someone kept the Torah and mitzvahs, they sacrificed on the terrible times. It depends which hero you want to put the focus on. So similarly here, so by Avadim Hayino, it's focusing on the physical aspect, and Mitchilas Odei Avodah Zarah, it's focusing on the spiritual aspect. So we do both. And then we say, and then we begin, and then we say we went free, and we went free from Paro in Egypt. So the question is, if tonight's a night of freedom, let's focus on the good stuff. Why have we been talking about the goodness, the shame, the slavery? Let's just get on with the good. Let's just move on. Right? Why not just move on and talk about the freedom? Why are we talking about slavery at all?
Well, you don't appreciate freedom unless you've had slavery.
So excellent. So as the Maharal points out, the Malbim, because it's the power of contrast. And that's anything in life. To fully appreciate something, you got to know the other side. To fully appreciate what light is, you got to know what darkness is. To fully appreciate, as much as we appreciate seeing, but for the one who couldn't see and now can see, it's a totally different appreciation. Intellectually we get it, but the experiential we don't have. Similarly, someone who couldn't walk now could walk, or we could go on and on. So too, one who was once a slave. So what do you know? If you've always been free, of course you kind of appreciate freedom. You take it for granted. But to fully appreciate what freedom is, you got to know what being an Eved is, and that's why first we put a big emphasis on the Avdos, on the shame. Oh, now we went free. Now we really get it. It is what freedom. The night of Pesach is all about freedom. So to understand freedom, we have to know what slavery is. And in fact, that's the famous pshat from Zalman Sorotzkin that he points out that the Jews, in Parashas Mishpatim, my Bar Mitzvah Parsha, that what's the first mitzvah given after the Torah was given? The mitzvah of how to treat a slave. So it's a very interesting mitzvah to pick. I mean, that would be on the bottom of my list. Don't get me wrong, not on the bottom of my list of importance. It's very important to treat anyone properly. Certainly someone, a slave, someone more vulnerable. I mean, you would think that's not the first thing God would have to tell the Jewish people. The Jewish people were slaves for 210 years in Egypt. Persecuted, tortured, terrible. So it's one thing I think the Jews would know what to do is how to treat a slave. Why is that the first mitzvah given? So the commentators point out, because that's the power of human nature and the danger of human nature. You would think that logically, but unfortunately it doesn't always work that way. There's another type of feeling going on, and that is payback time. I was a slave, I was mistreated, now I'm a master. Okay, it's my turn to play master, you play slave. I put in my time, and the danger is that a slave who becomes a master very quickly, in a certain level, is a more dangerous master, because like we see it around the world all the time. All these revolutions going on, they want peace, they want democracy, they want to make things better. That's until they take over. Once they take over, they treat the people, even if possible, they treat them even worse. And it's just a vicious cycle. So God's aware of human nature since He created us, and therefore, right after the mitzvah, right after the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people is how to treat a slave, because that's the most dangerous. If you were once slaves and mistreated, you're more likely to mistreat. If you become a master, you're going to mistreat. So getting back to the fully appreciate freedom, you have to know what slavery is. And in fact, that's what Rabbi Teitz, who suggested that they should observe Yom HaShoah, whatever you want to call the day, and the day before Lag BaOmer, because he wanted to have the power of contrast, that you have the death of Hitler, and then the next day you celebrate Lag BaOmer. The death of Rabbi Akida's students are over. Now we're celebrating, not that the death is over, we're celebrating the new students or whatever. We'll discuss it on Lag BaOmer what we're celebrating. But the point being is the power of contrast, and that's what Rav Selevan points out here. We have Yom HaZikaron, the day before Yom Haatzmaut, because if you want to appreciate Eretz Yisrael, you have to know what the Mesiras Nefesh, what everyone has given up for it. Not just Israeli soldiers and Jewish soldiers, and maybe non-Jewish soldiers, but all the innocent, all the people who were blown up in pizza shops, men, women, and children, people just walking down riding on a bus and they got blown up. All those people, all the Mesiras Nefesh, all the sacrifice that they gave, once we appreciate how much they sacrificed, then we'll begin to appreciate a little bit about the gift of Eretz Yisrael that God gave the Jewish people. The gift, and unfortunately, it's much easier to appreciate things. Ideally, it'd be great to appreciate them in a vacuum, and we do on a certain level. But to fully appreciate something, we need the power of contrast, and therefore we spend the night before Yom HaZikaron in remembering the tremendous efforts and why we have Israel today is because of one of the reasons. Obviously, God is a major one. In addition, obviously the soldiers helping us protect the land of Israel. So if we appreciate how much sacrifice and effort it took, so then there's a better chance that on the day of Yom Haatzmaut that we're able to appreciate it and have a hakaras hatov. And of course, like anything, how you celebrate Yom Haatzmaut, that's different opinions. Assuming you can celebrate it at all, but assuming you're going to celebrate it, you can discuss Hallel, no Hallel, with a bracha, without a bracha, and that's a question. That's a halacha question. You speak to your Rav, you speak to your posek. What do I do? Do I say Hallel? Do I say Hallel with a bracha? Do I say Chatzah? That's a halacha question. But again, putting the Hallel question aside, minimally, again, if you assume that it's a good thing that it's under Jewish control, you have to realize and appreciate it's a special day. How are you going to celebrate it? You want to celebrate it with learning about Eretz Yisrael, you want to celebrate planting trees, however you want to celebrate it, I'll leave it to you and your Rav to decide what's the appropriate way. But the point being is, that it's a day that we should realize the gift we got from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that He gave us back the land of, the land of Eretz Yisrael, and we have to appreciate it as a gift. As unfortunately, I think Reb Diskin says the Pshat War Mishpatim, that we know that a person who's an Eved, a slave, to 6 years, the 7th year he goes free. However, if he wants to stay, what do? They pierce his ear. It's a punishment. The ear that heard in Har Sinai that you're an Eved to God, you want to be an Eved to a person. Or the ear that heard not to steal, you stole. Whatever it is. But the question the Mefarshim ask is, let's assume he stole, that's why he became a slave. Not because he stole when he couldn't pay back. So putting someone in jail isn't going to get your money back. Making him work for you is going to get your money back. So we don't believe in jail per se. You become a more hardened, even though penitentiary comes from the word, from tshuva, but doesn't seem to work. They seem to become out more hardened criminals. They don't usually. Of course, you have exceptions. You do have some bali tshuva, but many come out more hardened criminals. That's a separate discussion, but we don't believe in jails per se. Obviously, if someone's a danger to society, either you kill them, or you lock them up temporarily until you decide what you're going to do. But in terms of the punishment, we don't believe in jail. But let them sit around doing nothing all day. How's that going to help anyone? So the point being is, either way, we could discuss the pros and cons of jail, but he has to do something. But the point being is, you pierce his ear and he gets punished. The point is, why are you piercing his ear now? He stole 7 years ago, 6 years ago. Why didn't you? The ear that heard I stole, why didn't you pierce his ear year 1? And the answer, Rav Diskin explains, is because the 6 years of being in servitude was supposed to be a punishment. That was supposed to be. Being a servant and not controlling your own destiny isn't a good thing. But if you turn the punishment into oh great, I love it here. I don't have to have no responsibilities. I have someone giving me room and board, someone supplying my food. I love it here. I love being a slave. It's an easy life. So then, if you turn the punishment into the reward, then unfortunately, you got to be punished then, because there was no punishment. And then you do the nirtza. You have to pierce his ear now to show it's not a good thing to be an Eved. There's only one person, you be an Eved to God, a servant to God, not a servant to people. And if you think being a servant is a good thing, you missed the whole point, and now we have to give you an onish. So I don't want to say, so unfortunately the same way, we have to realize as well, Eretz Yisrael is a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we don't appreciate the gift, because of our sins we are thrown into Golas, and obviously we're still in Golas. Without the Beis HaMikdash it's Golas. But when God gives us a gift, we have to appreciate the gift. So too when God punishes us, Golas is a punishment. Even though we might have a very comfortable Golas right now, things change pretty quickly, as we know. Last week was Yom HaShoah, the Holocaust wasn't that long ago. Today we live relatively, in probably the best times Jews lived in Golas. But things could change very quickly, like they did in Germany as well. We never have any guarantees. What we do know is we say in davening, because our sins were in exile, and if we're going to turn the punishment into a reward, what do you mean? Who needs it? Who needs Eretz Yisrael? I'm very comfortable here. I have a nice shul here. We have learning here. I have a kosher butcher. Okay, I'm not discussing I'm not saying everyone has a chiyuv to move to Eretz Yisrael live. That's a separate discussion, whether there is an obligation for people to live in Israel or not. But that's not my point. The point is whether you personally should live there or not. The point is appreciating a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and all the tremendous miracles that happen. Kriyas Yansuf is known as the prototype of all miracles. Why is it the prototype? There are a lot of greater miracles. The answer is because what happened after the Nes? It's Vayaminu v'Hashem u'Moshe Avdo. They believed in God and Moshe his servant. Az Yashia Moshe. How do you define the quality of the miracle? You see what happens afterwards. You know why Kriyas Yamsuf is known as a great miracle? Because what happened after the miracle? The Jews strengthened the belief in God. Like Eliyahu Bahara Kamel says, Aneni Hashem Aneni. Answer me, God, answer me. Why? I mean, he was stuttering. He said it twice. Like, answer me, God. What's answer me, God? Answer me. God, Aneni, answer me. Let the fire come down. Let me win the contest with the Ovdei Avodah Zarah, with the Baal. But I know many people see miracles and they move on like nothing happened. Aneni Hashem, Aneni. Answer me that the Jews will do tshuva and they'll come back. To do a miracle, great fire came down, but the Jews continue worshipping idols, doesn't do anyone any good. Aneni Hashem, Aneni. The greatness of Kriyas Yamsuf, of the association with the divine. All the tremendous miracles before 1948, after even the daily miracles that happen all the time, whether it's the Scud missiles that miss or this, we don't even know all the times the terrorists are coming in. And that's the pshat, the trick is to see the nisim, is to see the Yad Hashem. We have to see the hand of God in the gift of the land of Israel. And that's what, however you're going to celebrate, that's between you and your rabbinic advisor. But the point is to appreciate this as a special day. It's not just any day. And today we got, that God returned, hopefully permanently, the land of Israel, to the Jewish people.